Welcome back to the Unbiased Opinion, where everyone's opinion is biased except ours. I'm Colin.
I'm Craig.
Yes.
And I'm Raven.
And this is a very bittersweet moment because for the time being after this episode, we are done with the X-Men movies.
You mutants.
It took us like over a month to do this, I think. I think we've been doing this since August. All this nonsense. And as of this recording, it's almost the end of September. So we're almost done. And with our last movie, the most recent X-Men, the last Fox X-Men movie, it is Dark Phoenix. It's not even called X-Men Dark Phoenix, just Dark Phoenix. It is directed by our friend Simon Kinberg, who infamously attempted doing the Dark Phoenix storyline with X-Men The Last Stand. He co-wrote that movie. So he does it again 13 years later. And boys, what did you think of Dark Phoenix?
Is that actually the name?
Yes.
Did not know that.
Well, what do you think of it?
Uh, it's kind of mid-boring. Boring.
Okay, Daniel.
I didn't like it.
Okay. Well, this
Like
might
it's boring, but it's not even like it's boring to bad. I wouldn't even say it's mid.
this might shock you guys. I did not hate it. I prefer this over Apocalypse. They both have their problems, and I think the saving grace of this movie is that it's under 2 hours, which made it
I
more enjoyable for me.
Honestly, I
I
kind of agree.
I, I
Like, neither are
disagree.
good, let's just say
Oh,
that.
oh.
All
Well,
right,
Daniel, before you get
I'll
to your
give my
point,
I'll get there, and there's one reason why I prefer
well, before you get
Apocalypse
to your
over this
point,
one.
let me just tell the audience that this movie got slammed by every review out there, or every reviewer. Has a 22% on Rotten Tomatoes, has a 43% on Metacritic, holds a 5.7 out of 10 on IMDb. It was also a colossal box office bomb. Had a budget of 200 million, grossed 252. Now, granted, I think even with its bad reviews, it would have done better had it not come out in the crowded summer release date of 2019. 2019 was just crowded with so many billion-dollar movies.
See,
But that's
how close did it come out to Endgame?
June 7th. But then again, Craig, there was The
Oh,
Lion King, there was John Wick 3, there was Godzilla, there was so many
The Lion
movies.
King's a big movie.
It made $1 billion.
Really?
Yes, where were
A
you?
Yeah,
remake of an
The
animated movie
remake.
that you
yeah,
could
Yeah,
watch
because
the
for free?
remake, Craig.
I remember a lot of people were making a big deal. The live action. It's like, what's the big deal? But
It's
it's
not live
still, but
action.
It's digital.
well, did you?
Yeah.
But the whole point is like it was still,
1.6 million, Craig. Craig, we talked, I
com
don't know if you remember this, but I remember we talked about the box office in our very first episode.
yeah.
Because our first episode was in 2019. It was like September. It's like 5 years
I
ago,
don't.
actually.
Well, you think I keep this stuff like hide
Because
my,
we talked about like the summer movies on our first episode. Doesn't matter. Daniel, what did you want to say?
I've got memory problems. I want
Yeah,
to
I know.
remember
I know.
movies from 2019.
Daniel, what did you
What
want to
came out
say?
in 2019?
Shut up. Well, Daniel, what did you get to your point, Daniel? What did you want to say?
Well, all right. The main reason why I say Apocalypse is better than Dark Phoenix, and not saying that Apocalypse is, in terms of being overall movie, it's like better. But the one main reason I enjoy Apocalypse more is because they don't completely, pardon my language, shit on Xavier. They make him the villain in this, and it annoyed me so much. Everyone's blaming him, and he literally says, "I was the villain." I'm like, "Are you kidding?" Like they completely like just crap on Xavier.
Yeah, that is a big problem because none of it makes any sense or hold any weight.
Well, yes, that was definitely the biggest problem I had. And there's that infamous scene that we all know what I'm talking about. And oddly enough, Fox was so proud of that scene that they published it on their YouTube page a couple of weeks before the movie came out, I remember. And it's the one where Mystique is saying, well, before that, she is talking down to Charles, who has given up everything
I think we
for...
need to have like a full discussion for that scene because there's so many things wrong with it.
Do you want us to have that discussion now?
Well, I guess briefly, the movie opens up with the X-Men get called up as like a last resort to save the space shuttle
Let me
that's
stop you
out of
right there,
control.
Craig. The movie opens up with retconning X-Men 3,
Yeah, well, no
because
one cares.
1975, Jean Grey accidentally kills her mom, even though you see both her parents in 86 in X-Men 3.
Well, maybe that was her dad's new stepmom.
Yeah, but then
Yeah, I know.
it just doesn't make any. All right, you can yeah continue. They're
Yes,
saving.
the space shuttle out of control. The X-Men get called to save it. They're all kind of, I think Mystique and Beast are like, I don't know if we can do it. And Professor's like, no, please, we really should do this. It's the right thing to do, and it will help us. And they save them. Jean gets all of a sudden gets attacked by this space flare. I don't think people know what a space flare is because it's obviously not one. And then after they save everybody successfully, they all come back and guess they get mad at Charles for setting on the mission, which apparently they do regularly. So I don't know why this wouldn't be any different.
Yeah, so then Mystique, and all of her wisdom, decides to talk down to Charles, literally and figuratively, about how he's not sacrificing anything, even though this is a man who's opened up his home to help young mutants embrace who they
For
are
decades at
and
this point.
hone in on their
Yeah,
abilities and
seriously.
not be scared of humans and not be scared of who they are. Charles is doing everything for the mutants more than Mystique has, by
Oh,
the
she says,
way.
when was the last time you lost anything? Remember he lost his legs twice. He almost got taken over by Apocalypse.
He lost
He
his
helped
hair.
save the future. Yeah, well,
He was
that's
even
the biggest thing.
he was even willing to, put aside a potential love interest.
Yeah, Moira in the first one.
So
Like,
to
he's done
he
a
has
lot for
sacrificed a lot.
mutants.
Yeah, he has
Yeah.
sacrificed a lot, and she's so hung up about like, oh, who are the X Men named after anyway? They're named after Charles. Well, I guess, but it's his home.
Didn't she come up with the name in first
She
class?
did. She did actually.
So like, where's this coming from? I know the continuity is terrible, but again, she's saying, "Oh, why we're called X-Men?" It's like, well, yeah, you gave us the name 30 years ago.
Idiot.
Well, continue on the real reason.
Oh, well, yeah, they're trying to make this, feminist point of actually be called X women,
Well,
but
he said
if
because
you watch the
she
scene
said,
5 minutes ago, see, this is the kind of thing he's very divisive, but if you watch the scene 5 minutes ago, you could see that Quicksilver and Nightcrawler did do a lot of the heavy lifting. So it wasn't just women saving the day. I mean,
It
it is
was
a
a
team effort.
it was a team effort, and I don't know why
exactly.
Mystique is so hung up about it.
Well,
It's very weird. And then, men is refers to males and females in the plural form of the word. I know Charles tried to give her a good education, but she must have fallen asleep in those classes.
I don't think she attended those classes. She's probably too busy thinking about killing somebody.
yeah,
Also, coming from the woman who he took as an orphan to raise as his foster sister, and she's talking to him like that. Like, oh, you're not generous, you don't do anything. Like the most ungrateful person in the world right now.
yeah.
I was just to
The,
feel bad for her when she
the
dies. Give me a
same
break.
guy who was when he was at his lowest got pulled out to come stop her from murdering a man.
To save the
But
future.
that's the other
Yeah.
thing too. He's like, we know what one bad day looks
And you know what the funny
like.
thing
You
was?
almost caused it.
He was right. He was right about the mutants having a bad day publicly. He was right. She only in death she proved his point.
Yeah, because then, yeah, all of a sudden they all get sent to mutant internment. I mean, granted, it happened pretty quickly without any real development, but still,
Yeah.
how quickly they get shipped away into a mutant death camp. So this whole point of like she doesn't know what she's talking about, like, and Charles is getting ego and self-obsessed, and he makes the point too. Well, I'd prefer them patting me on the back versus hunting me down. So yeah, I'm not going to apologize for that.
Well,
And who
and
can
it's
blame him?
yeah, and also he is looking out for all the mutants, all the kids that they can pull in. Because if they start, building a good public relationship, eventually, like his plan, like he said in um, the movie before, where he's like, we can make this a university for everyone, So then he can, but no.
No,
And it's
Also,
not
Mystique
like,
let's not
has to
forget,
talk down to the paraplegic guy who's given up everything for his
and he's
students.
and he's sending out like the most powerful and like the best trained mutants. It's not like he's,
that she
you know,
trained, by the way.
yeah. Yeah, the one she trained, they're all trained. It's not like he's sending in a bunch of 10-year-olds who it's their first day. Like, all right, if you want to get into the school, you
Child
gotta,
soldier
yeah,
army.
Yeah, it's
yeah,
not like he's sending children into like a machinery shop of the 1920s. Like, all right,
yeah, or
kids,
sending,
start working.
yeah, or sending them to Diddy's house. It's like he's taking like,
What's wrong with you?
Also, one more thing. Let's not forget, in the previous movie, X and Apocalypse, she was so pro training these kids to fight.
I
She wanted
know.
the child soldiers. Professor X said, is it really, should we have children fighting? I don't think that's a good idea. Good luck for the school. At least wait till they're, 18, which this movie, they keep calling them kids, but they're like 28 or, 28, 26. I think Quicksilver's almost 40.
Yeah.
He is. But let's also not forget, Quicksilver saved everybody when the mansion exploded. Just saying.
Well, he was completely useless in this film.
Well,
Well,
it's the same problem in every movie. He's
yeah, it's
too
the same
powerful, so
one
they
they
have to
had.
sideline him.
Yeah, they don't know what to do with him. He's too powerful. He's more powerful than anybody. I don't know.
Yes, he gets magically put
But
into a coma.
but then and then to continue on the hating on Xavier, then after she dies, then um
Beast.
yeah, Hank pours onto this, blaming it's all his fault and everything. You're the villain. You won't admit you're wrong. Like, I'm like, oh my God. Like,
Everyone is just so angry in this movie. Everyone's just dumping on Charles for the sake of. Do they get kicks out of just dumping on a paraplegic man? I don't get it. This poor man again who has sacrificed so much for mutants. Everyone just likes dumping on him.
But they're not even attacking him on any fair. He's supposed to be like this morally good character, so it's kind of hard to attack him morally. But they're attacking him for like very petty, stupid stuff. Like you're not generous enough. Like what more could he possibly do
Even though that's
to
his family
please
home,
you?
he's opened up to everybody to help mutants, letting
Well, essentially they're
squatters.
attacking him for not being good enough, as opposed to what are these people doing? Like Mystique was an assassin for like 15 years, running around assassinating people. Like, you're a
uh,
good person. You're the moral paragon we aspire to be. Like, give me a break.
yeah, or the whole or she's like, or the fact that she's pouring it onto when they go to find Jean, and she's like now pouring it on Charles. Like, oh, you shouldn't have hid the truth from her. It's like, I mean, that's a pretty traumatic event that happened to that girl, and you see what happens if she does lose control. Like,
Well, also too, I think they even say, obviously maybe it wasn't the best thing to do, but it was more of an act of love than an act of malice. Like he wasn't trying to, manipulate her or into anything bad. He was just trying to maybe help her to the trauma. Maybe you're probably better off if you think your parents are dead. We obviously saw that he was right. Because again, you could say maybe you shouldn't manipulate her memories, but he was right in the sense that it's not very pleasant to know that because look what your dad treats you, and you
yeah,
obviously can't control your emotions.
yeah. Well, yeah, you saw she literally murdered her, accidentally, but still got her mom killed. Like, so again, it's not like he was training. It's not like he wiped her memory so he could train her up to be a child soldier, and like,
Well,
you
she's
know,
not even a
like,
child at this point.
but you know what I mean?
I know what
Like,
you're
it's
saying, though.
his intentions weren't evil. So it's like this whole dumping on, Charles. And like, I'm sorry, but the whole Hank, like everyone being in love with Raven was so annoying at this point. Like, I'm like watching this, like she sucks. Like, why? Like Magneto's like, oh, I loved her. It's like, dude, you haven't been around this girl for 20 years. You always talk about you loved her. You were barely with her in the first movie. Like, if anyone who should feel the most love for her, it's Charles. He grew
Preach,
up with her.
Daniel, preach.
Like, this whole like
Yas,
Magneto, like,
Queen.
yeah, like Magneto's like, oh, I loved her, and then like him and Hank are like, we had our differences, but we both loved Raven. It's like, are you kidding?
Well,
This
how
is so
pathetic does that make
stupid.
Hank, where he's
Yeah,
essentially
Hank's a
loving
cuck.
Raven for 30 years? They first met in 1962. This movie takes place in 1992. Hank, my brother, come on.
Come on.
Hank's like, come on, I'm starving.
But it's just like it's pathetic at this point. And yeah, that whole murder revenge quest thing that they wanted to like Hank and Magneto team up to
Well,
kill her. That was dumb.
I just like also Magneto like trying to make him this like redeeming character. It's like, all right, it's like, was the trend just every movie you're gonna find Magneto in a different place, like, or a different part of his life? He's like the last movie he had a family. The first movie he was in. The second movie he was in jail, and then like
Let
this
me
movie
stop
now
you there,
he's running
Daniel.
a
He
rough.
was in jail at the center of the Pentagon for killing the president.
Yeah, it's like It's like the trend in these movies was like where's Magneto?
What remote location is Magneto at?
Yeah, and then this one now he's running a refugee camp. Like,
Well, that
wouldn't
is
you
a
think?
location in the comics, right?
Yeah,
Genosha?
it's a no
Yeah,
show.
but why wouldn't
But
he be like working with Charles on that?
I
Like,
question the logic of giving well-known international terrorist Magneto an island to himself. I really question the U.S. government's decision in that.
especially after the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Cuban Missile Crisis dropping RFK Stadium around the White House, helping level potentially the entire planet's cities. I mean,
He helped. Yeah, he helped wipe out Egypt or Cairo.
I don't understand giving this man an island to himself. I guess maybe they could say, well, it's better we know where he is than not where he is, but still,
But
I think you give him the island, you take him out into sleep like a this man has proven he's incredibly dangerous.
yeah. So like yeah, he goes back on another murder quest for the second straight movie because someone he cares about died. And
I
then
didn't
like,
realize that too. Well, it's what
yeah,
he's good for is just killing people.
well again, it's Magneto finds peace for the second straight movie, and then he gets pulled back into a revenge quest. And then him and Charles to have their moment, they stand off, disagree, and then they reconnect at the end.
And they play chess at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, as if like they're trying to put some sentimental bow on this crap.
So I watched this today, maybe even a couple hours ago, and I forget what the villain's name was.
Oh yeah,
Played
what was her name?
It's
I
played
don't
by
forget.
I don't
Jessica Chastain, and I don't know. She's just some alien,
Yeah,
and she
honestly,
just
like
wants the Phoenix Force.
they it honestly would have been better had you just not had the alien plot in there. Because I think it would have been the problem is like the aliens were thrown in. They were taken like they were like the backstage. It's like you didn't even need to be there because already you have the ex women divided, and then they're trying to now go after Jean, who's uncontrollable. I think that should have just been the entire struggle. Why do you have these shape-shifting aliens?
Well, let me
That,
ask you this. This is usually around the time of each episode I ask. In the comics, was it just the struggle of the X-Men trying to deal with Jean with the Phoenix Force, or were there aliens in the comics too?
No, it
In the
was well.
Phoenix Saga.
So originally it was the Hellfire Club. Sebastian Shaw. I don't know if he was specifically there, but it was his group trying to manipulate Jean, and then the Shi'ar get involved because I think Jean Grey flies into space, destroys like a planet and
Oh
some
my
Shi'ar ships.
god.
Yeah, and
yeah.
they're like saying, okay, now she has to die. She's become too destructive. And
Well, with
then she
the
like sacrifices herself.
Okay.
Honestly,
Interesting.
I think the comics a tad overrated. I'm gonna say it.
That's interesting. She
Well, it's
destroys a
funny. It's
planet.
funny, Craig. It's supposed to be the Shi'ar, but they're acting like the Skrulls.
Well, they were supposed to be the Skrulls.
These were?
Yeah, they were supposed to, but I think I read somewhere that because of Captain Marvel,
Oh, the rights
the woman.
issues.
No, I think they had the rights to the scrolls, but they said because Captain Marvel was using the scrolls, they didn't want to
Like the
step on their cornflakes and also use the scrolls.
Because these ones kind of looked like mini Groots with the abilities of the Skrulls.
They look like that alien from Signs.
That's what I was thinking. Was that
Yeah.
creepy alien?
But it was so pointless. Like what? And then like their whole point, like then it was like, oh, thrown in like, oh yeah, we're gonna take over everything. It's like, uh, okay. And then Jean just wipes them out at the end.
Everything they built will
Well, that
fall.
that scene was so incredibly stupid. Like after she regains her consciousness and like still she's like, I know what I must do now. And then that shot of like them just running at her super fast, it looks so bad. And then she just disintegrating them like Thanos using the snap.
Well, the
Like
X-Men movies had never been known for their top tier CGI.
Well, I think
I will say that this movie actually was not that bad looking.
well,
Yeah.
the one scene that stood out to me was Storm using the lightning above the train. That looked bad.
Well, that was a reshoot. They reshot the ending and like the third act, I think. Not the whole third act, but the third act climax.
Okay, because that stuck out to me like a sore thumb.
So when I was when I was rewatching, because I have to say, this is the first time I have seen this movie since it came out. I saw it. I didn't see it in theaters, but I saw it. Craig, you watched it with me, remember?
I
You
did.
watched it, yeah. All
This
right.
was
Of
a just
course,
I'll say
you remember.
this was my first time watching the entire movie. Like I'd seen clips, but this is my first time watching it through.
But I have seen this before. But it's been 5 whole years, so I remember next to nothing about it. And the action in this movie is not too bad, except when it's all dark and then there's these aliens running at G, and then she like disintegrates them. But I
Well,
thought
it
the
was good.
movie, to be fair, I thought the movie wasn't that boring. I know Daniel absolutely hates it. If he could, he'd pee on it. But I didn't think it was all that terrible.
See,
Well, again,
I agree with Daniel's
I
criticism. I mean, I think any sane person would agree with
Oh
that.
yeah, the way they
the,
treat Charles in this is heinous.
Charles, who is easily the best part, I would say, like the most consistent and best part of all these movies. And this is supposed to be your farewell to them. You crap on him of all people. Like, come on.
I thought
Well,
Cyclops was good.
yeah, probably one of the better Cyclopses.
Oh yeah. Well, it's nice to see him like actually stepping up and like,
It's
being
nice to have him in the movie.
a
Actually,
well, and also too, it's like at least in these past two movies, that's the one good thing that you see like his progression of like, all right, he was the last movie he was finding himself, but he still was like um still taking more initiative, and like you start seeing him being a leader of the younger group. And then this one, like he actually, seeing him like get into the older group, like where now he's becoming like a full-time leader. That was nice. They actually, they at least had a proper arc for Cyclops.
I like that he was just carrying Charles around for the whole third act, like in the train. Just-
Yeah, but still, like I like seeing
But
he's
I
like
also
blasting
like that
people.
he used his powers more than like the original ones. Like he was um expertly what's the word I'm
Well,
looking for?
I
He was
did.
expertly using his beam and like bouncing off mirrors and stuff. That was
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, he was being, efficient and like
Optic. I was looking for
proper.
the optic beams.
Well, I did like in that in the first when they fly up there and they're like Cyclops shoot out the rotor and then he just like descends down to that thing and they have like a gun ready for him.
I mean, yeah, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that's something from the comics.
Probably, but still, whoever thought of it, those are
Well,
things that you like. You start thinking of, you try to. I think it adds to the realism of the world.
yeah,
Yes, like obviously Cyclops has powers to long range shooting stuff, so you have ability to do that, even on the Blackbird.
yeah. I mean, Nightcrawler was good in the, like he was fine in this movie. I like how like
Well, let's say him and Storm were
they
just
were really using they were really using Nightcrawler. Especially what was it him where like I also well it was funny but also like come on Charles like he couldn't beat this random mutant in a psychic battle for Nightcrawler. Like Charles is supposed to be stronger. The only one that he's not stronger than is would be Jean in this movie with the Phoenix Force, and he's struggling with this random psychic mutant that Magneto brought. When she's trying to like when he's trying to get like Nightcrawler to get him closer, and then the girl's like now pulling Nightcrawler back. I'm like, all right, come on. Like Charles should not
yeah.
be
I mean,
losing any
yeah.
battle outside of Jean with the Phoenix Force. He should not be losing any telekinetic battle with anyone.
Well, also, we even know she was a telekinetic until she says, "I'm a telekinetic." Because usually with these like these characters you introduce that are just there to fight, at least you can kind of visually see what their powers are. You look at her like I have no idea what her powers were. Like the one guy with the spiky dreads. All right, I guess he moves his hair around. Parrot's like, oh, she holds a knife and stuff. I guess. All right, whatever.
Why was Quicksilver even in this movie? I think they should have killed him off in Apocalypse because again they
He got
sideline
he
him. This is the
Yeah.
easiest paycheck for the fella who plays Quicksilver. He probably shows up for like 3 days of work.
How many lines did he even say too? Because like at the end, like when that one kid was running, he's like, "Oh, slow down."
Because he wasn't in the final battle, not that I remember.
No, because
Mm,
again, he's too powerful. You have him fighting, then he'll take out everybody.
Yeah. Well, not Jean. He couldn't fight Jean. I thought it was also
Okay, not
laughable
Gene.
at the end where they try to tease that Jean dies, even though we know that she's alive and well in the future, because we see Wolverine wake up to that.
Oh, you think they care about continuity?
Well, the thing is, that is the
Oh,
movie
I
that
know.
that's the one that they can't really mess up because they redid the Singer movies. I said his name, my bad. They redid that guy's movies to have a new ending where
It's Singer,
Cyclops
is that
and
his first name or last name?
and Jean Grey are still alive. So it's just like, why even bother teasing that she died? We know we like anyone with a modicum of intelligence knows that she's alive.
I wouldn't say modicum. I mean, you saw the previous movie. This is the sequel to Days of Future Past, which, I mean, that's at some point you have to understand people maybe, okay, they didn't watch the X-Men in 2000, but they probably saw Days of Future Past and Apocalypse, which at that time was 5 years ago when this movie came out.
I
It's not that long ago.
just don't know why they would do that. It's so silly.
If we're talking silly stuff too. So you remember at the end of Apocalypse where Jean basically is the Phoenix already?
Yeah.
yeah.
So why is it this one, the previous one was setting up the fact that it's in her mind like X3. Like it's an alien, it's this evil thing inside of her. But now this movie is just straight up she gets the Phoenix Force.
Yeah, it's
So
like I guess they were trying to be like somewhat comic book accurate, but then it was like what's the point? Like just it's within her, just it awakens. I don't know. Just
what's the point of setting up in the previous movie then? I mean, it's still the same story. It
Maybe
just
maybe
the setup's so different.
well, the thing that's so baffling is that Simon Kinberg is the sole writer for a screenplay by for a few Days of Future Past and Apocalypse. Now, that guy, I think Matthew Vaughn had a hand in writing the story for Days of Future Past. My point is that when you have the same guy who wrote these movies and he still makes these errors.
I think he's been in
How?
X-Men for a while, right?
and it seemed like he was the big pusher for the Phoenix Force
Well, I'm just saying, like,
story.
why would they make the same mistake in X3 for Apocalypse, where it's like, oh, well, this thing's always inside of her, and then this one, it's not, and then it's, I guess you could say more comic book accurate, but just like, how can you mess that up? Is my point.
Yeah.
You'll find, well, to be honest, does this movie have a lot of production problems?
Um,
Why did he?
besides,
I was gonna hopefully let you probably that you knew that it does have a lot of production problems.
it didn't really have too much, not that I know of. It just said it tested poorly, and then they had to reshoot some stuff.
Well, a lot of it. So originally this is supposed to be a two-parter.
Oh yes, I did see that.
It's supposed to be a two-parter. They wanted to use the scrolls, and then because of Marvel buying Fox, things got changed. They changed it to 2-1, and they said he can't use the scrolls, and a lot of stuff was happening.
Yes, it is true.
Usually you look into this stuff, so I figured you would cover the details, but I know there was a lot of behind the scenes trouble.
Yeah, there was. I did see that two-parter thing.
And something I saw too, which is kind of interesting, that the apparently Simon Kinberg said he basically kind of took responsibility, even though I don't think it's entirely his fault either. Granted, he was the writer director,
Well, I think a
but with all
good
the production
amount of it
issues,
is his fault.
yeah,
Oh
I know
yeah,
he's
that you
still
know what
in charge.
that is commendable. You gotta give him props
He
for.
took responsibility for, which is kind of rare. Most people, when they make a bad movie, they say, "Oh, the audience is just stupid. They're evil and stupid." That's why
Yeah,
they didn't like my movie.
I give him props. He was the writer director. He went down with the ship. Captain always goes down with the ship, and he did so.
So I'll give him credit for that. It's
Good
very few
guy,
people own
Simon
up to their
Kinberg.
mistakes. It's even better because I feel like he could have maybe done better without the production issues, but that's
Well,
another issue.
the one thing I guess you could say is that this does feel like aside from its colossal mistakes with handling Charles, it does feel like an X-Men movie. There isn't stupid Wolverine running around, and it's focused on him loving Jean.
There's no there's no like 20-minute detour just to have a Wolverine kill.
Yeah, I
That's also
like I like
that's a,
the cast. I thought the cast was good, and I like the movies without Wolverine because, again,
that's
as I said before, the other X-Men movies are not X-Men movies. They're Wolverine and the X-Men. Wolverine in like size 10 font and the X-Men in size 2. This feels more traditional, where it's like,
yeah.
oh, it's a whole team of people. That they use Cyclops, the leader of the X-Men. They have Nightcrawler a lot in this one.
Storm was there, I guess.
Yeah, they don't really know what to do with Storm still after 20 years,
I
but
feel like they never get her power. I feel like they like are always afraid to have her show off her powers. I'm like, dude, like, her with lightning alone will be able to take down most of these other X-Men.
well, the thing
Like,
is, I just think they don't know what to do with her.
Well, what's her character? I mean, my understanding of her character is that I'm trying to think of something like she's just so bland. Like in the movies, they never really made her a character. Like, why do people like her?
I don't know.
Because I
would
don't
it
really know what she
would it be
does.
more in the comics? Is like obviously she's with the no with the X-Men, but would her relevance also have a lot to do with her marriage to T'Challa?
Well, they got divorced.
They did.
Is that recent?
Yeah, they weren't married that long.
Oh.
I don't follow.
Well, because I remember that was like, one of the people were trying to. The thing with comic romance is that everyone dates everybody. At some point, she'll date everyone on the Avengers, all that stuff.
When did they actually get divorced in the comics? Was it like a newer issue, or was this like a while?
I can look it up, but the thing with Storm is that I don't really know much about it. People like her, but I just I don't know. They never really do anything with her. She's like, oh, I'm the person with weather powers. It's like, okay.
They never properly used them.
They got divorced in January 2018. When did they get married?
Oh, that's pretty recent.
Yeah.
Well, I think in Marvel's Alliance, the game, the first one, there's trivia on her being married to Black Panther. So
Yeah.
before 2006.
Okay, so they were married in '06.
Oh, okay. So that was, I guess, right before that game came out.
Yeah, in late 2006, they got married.
Maybe it was Marvel's Alliance 2. That's
That's
in the
probably the
trivia.
second one.
But yeah, I guess they just don't know what to do with Storm. And again,
Yeah.
that's always been a problem with these movies that there's just too many characters. And movies, as we talked about when we compare movies and books, it's not one to one in terms of like adapting stuff. In comics and in books, you can get away with a lot more in terms of not having character development for people than you can for movies. And plus, you can a lot more time in comics and books than movies to
Well, it's like the
characters and
difference between a
stuff.
TV show and a
Yeah.
movie.
I was just happy to see my boy Scott Slim Summers get some love.
Slim Summers.
Well, like when he was fighting Magneto, like he was destroying Magneto's shield, like taking apart piece by piece.
Yeah.
Cyclops is just so
Clever.
cool, and it's a shame that it took him until this movie to have him actually do stuff.
Actually, bounces
Is
optic
is
balls off
is
of a
it
mirror.
is it a coincidence, Craig, that the worst X-Men movie is
All
the best
right,
Cyclops movie?
all right.
I don't think it's a coincidence. I think, the less Cyclops you have, the better movie you get. I mean, look at Days of Future Past, zero Cyclops.
He was at the end.
Not really. Doesn't count.
There was a bittersweet cameo at the end.
So, Daniel, have you ever heard of the Davari alien race?
The name does sound familiar.
See, I don't think I've ever heard of them before. But when you do a Wikipedia search, apparently it says their first appearance was Avengers #4, Captain America again, which I don't remember them appearing in that. So something's fishy here. Granted, I read that a long time ago, but I don't remember them appearing in Avengers #4. I don't have my books available to me right now, so I can't check. I was just curious
I
because
want to see what they look like because that's why I was like, that name sounds very familiar.
Hmm.
I don't know. I just don't remember them, to be honest. Granted, it's been a while since I read the
Oh,
issue.
yeah.
Yeah. Who are these people?
Um, Throw a W in the chat.
Chat that gives W. Who are you talking to?
W
I understand
chat.
because all I remember from Avengers number 4 is them fighting Hulk and Namor. I don't remember any other races. Obviously, they find Captain America as well, but I remember the
The
big stuff, not
glory.
Look them up. Craig, you'll remember them if you see them. I remember seeing them, yeah. Because they got like the
the
straw
Broadway
hair.
people.
Yeah.
Oh, it
It's,
says they're
it's
most known as the people whose star system was destroyed by Phoenix during the Dark Phoenix saga in 1980.
well, all I'm saying is I don't really remember them from that issue. All I remember is, the Hulk and Namor fight the Avengers and they find Captain America.
So I guess one good thing you could say about this movie is that the costumes for the X-Men are good. I kind of like it.
See,
It's
a
a
lot of people hate it.
really why?
So everyone likes like all their favorite characters, more comic accurate costume, but I think it makes sense. They're a team under one banner. They should have more of a uniform. They shouldn't
Well,
have their own like
people
unique.
want the super skin tight costumes on all the female characters.
No,
I
no, not just that.
I know
Like
for
the
Cyclops, but
fact, I mean, you could use a little more pizzazz, but I do think that that's something that I think it makes sense that they should all have the same uniform. You shouldn't have Storm running around in her little silly outfit. You shouldn't have Jean Grey running
Yeah.
around in a different silly outfit,
Well,
or Cyclops or Quicksilver.
I think the only one that shouldn't have an outfit is Hugh Jackman.
all right.
Yes, while
But
he's gutting Cyclops in front of the game.
but I thought it looked good. It, like you said, it's like it's a team uniform. It's not like somebody's gonna have some crazy over designed costume.
Well, it would make sense, like, in other sports, like one guy just looks like nobody else on the team.
Well,
Like imagine
but my
quarterback,
point
like
was
it's like
it's a long way from the dark black leather costumes we got in the original X-Men movies.
yes, that is very true.
And I don't know
Yeah,
how people can like those bad all leather X-Men costumes. I don't think anyone does like them, but like
yeah.
how?
There's always someone that likes them, some contrarian.
Me.
Also, did you notice the Dazzler cameo?
Oh, at the stupid outside party.
Which is kind of funny because again, they try to say that they're young kids, but these are guys in their late 20s partying. I mean, not that you can't party in your late 20s, but usually they kind of reserve that stuff for the more college age kids, and these people are, like they're like the professor's
What
teacher.
like who decided to come up with the Dazzler?
Tom DeFalco and John Romita Jr. in 1980.
Like, ability to convert sound into light of various forms and intensity. So, I mean, it seems like her power is like reading it. That it's just.
I don't know. I never, I don't care much for the mutants, and she's well at the bottom of the list. But the only reason people keep talking about her now is because they want Taylor Swift to play her in a future
Oh
X-Men movie.
God.
I'm not joking, by the way.
Wait, is she married in the comics? Is she dating famous X-Men?
I have no idea.
So I thought Beast looked good in this movie too. He's a long way.
He
Remember how
got
terrible he looked in the first
yeah,
movie?
he got better looking in all of them.
Yeah, he
Oh,
looks
we
He,
didn't
terrible
know.
in First
he
Class. He
oh
actually
he
looked
did.
kind of like Kelsey Grammer a little bit, like
He's
his
getting there.
makeup.
Did he?
Yeah, he actually looks kind of good. like Craig
Granted, he's
said,
almost 60 years old.
yeah, but like Craig said, the movie is, it's not like some dark, disgusting nightmare. Like it's not desaturated like a Zack Snyder movie. It's a fairly good looking movie, and I like the costumes, like the character designs. I thought the actors are good. It's just a shame that the villain is very unforgettable that we can't even name her. We don't even know what her name is.
Yeah, it's Vuk. VUK. Oh, sorry.
No, I
Vuk?
mean, I think you said it in Buck.
It just, I don't know, it's VUK. I don't know.
I mean, at that point, she should have never like they shouldn't even written a name.
I think to go with Daniel's point earlier, they shouldn't even have that Dabari people in it. I think it would have been probably better if it was just the X-Men going after Jean and trying to control her and whatnot.
I mean, isn't it disturbing to people that a bunch of aliens are in key positions around the world are kind of in key positions of power? Is that not disturb anybody? It's like the secret invasion, like
Maybe
taking over
maybe
people
that's
at
going to
key
be the other
positions.
part of it, Greg.
Nah,
I
I
mean,
don't think you can't do the Secret Invasion without the Avengers.
well, yeah, the secret invasion involved like so many people. Like the X-Men really weren't that involved. Well, granted,
Well, Daniel, they did do
maybe you
without the
could, but
Avengers, and they said that James Rhodey was a Skrull since after
Yeah,
Civil War, I
yeah.
think.
Is that getting another season?
Don't think so.
There you go. You don't do it without the Avengers.
Well, they're not going to do it again, right? There's no way that's going to be. I
Well, I
think
mean,
it's one and
they
done.
completely botched the scrolls on when they introduced them, but
well, that was the other issue.
yeah, that was you gave the scroll like how are you supposed to have the scrolls be this intimidating race when their first movie is them on the run?
Oh, pull us, pull us.
Especially when they're the ones that created the Kree.
Yeah, well, I don't know how much people want to dive into that.
Well, yeah, we're talking about the X-Men.
Anyway, not to.
Usually
That's like
Craig's
the
the one that
lore dump.
spurgs. It's Daniel was spurging.
Give a little
I
lore
liked how
dump.
into it, Daniel, you were getting when you were just disgusted with how they treated Charles.
Yeah, because Charles is he like I know everyone loves Wolverine and yeah, I know you love like we all have our personal favorites, but I always liked Xavier, especially because not even just as like an X-Men like fan, like not speaking as one, um but as a Marvel fan, Charles Xavier is a pretty important character. So like for them to just take a dump on him in the finale, it was just like, come on.
Well, again, it's the one character who's pretty unsparing of himself.
Yeah, like there's certain characters you just don't touch, or like come on.
Like I can understand if they would maybe go after Wolverine for being selfish and all that stuff, because he can be, he's got character flaws. Obviously, that's part of his appeal. But someone unsparing of himself and pretty selfless is not the kind of person you want to deconstruct and tear down. All these what these writers do.
Especially when Charles
They're
is
not even
always
deconstructing it, Craig. They're just like dumping on him for the sake of
especially
it.
especially when Charles is the one that's like he's the voice of reason in all the X-Men movies. Like when they hit their low points, he's the one that keeps them going. So with the exception of like Days of Futures Past, but he's still, he got picked up by Wolverine, and then once he got back, like he was the one, to stop Raven from, he talked her out of shooting Trask.
Well, also
He's
that's the big thing about Xavier too, is his unending optimism and the looking for the best in people. That saved the future. And everyone's, attacking him for not willing to give up on Jean Grey no matter what she does.
you're not the one.
Usually that's an admirable trait, but they make it seem like he's the bad guy for looking for the best in people. It just it's like I said, I can see why Daniel's upset. Like I don't expect much from these movies, so I'm not as upset, but I understand why.
Well,
I
that's the
get
thing
it.
is, I did expect about Chalice, but I didn't expect that.
Yeah, like Colin said, a scene they're so proud of, they posted on YouTube several weeks early.
Like, uh,
Well, the only thing also, if the MCU is going to be doing more X-Men movies, which I don't know if that's confirmed or not. I don't think it's on any of their
So
slates so
I
far.
saw a rumor that, granted, it's a rumor online, so it's probably not true, but the rumor I saw was after Avengers Secret War, that's the end of the multiverse saga, and then moving on to the mutant saga.
Oh boy.
Again, no idea how true that is. I could be reading nonsense, but
Maybe they should just focus on getting the Fantastic Four right.
no, don't worry. They'll reboot again in 10 years.
So I'm curious for the MCU. Are they going to shoehorn in Wolverine with the MCU X-Men, or is it going to be a traditional X-Men adventure without Wolverine shoehorned in?
Well, I mean, I wonder because for this Fantastic Four reboot, aren't they? It's taking place in the '60s. Are they going to give
It's
it
it's
a?
a separate reality or something. It's another
Oh,
universe, I think.
oh
Of
yeah, I
course.
forgot. Because I was gonna say if they are just gonna reboot, like go back in time and do like maybe the more like traditional '60s, they could start fresh with the X-Men there. You could actually
So
have the
I know
you can.
we said this before, but I think the X-Men is something that, especially if you want to have characters that have Holocaust ties, they can't be running around. By the time it's 2030, that movie will probably come out, the X-Men movie. That's almost 100 years. So I think that it has to be a certain time frame the X-Men have to take place in
Yeah, I
if
mean,
you're going to have that kind of origin for
yeah.
Magneto.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
true
because
too.
I think that the X-Men, like instead of the Fantastic Four taking place in the '60s, I think like you're saying the X-Men should just stay within that time frame. I agree with you because again, like Charles and Eric were kids when World War II was going on.
Well,
So, but
Charles is the one that is more flexible with that. He could be
Well,
some
it's
guy
really just
born.
Magneto's the inflexible one.
yeah,
Yeah, because Craig, you said that wasn't his original comic origin. But I guess now it's synonymous with his character, so it's like, how are you going to? Unless they're going to
That
pull the
and
Captain America route where he's frozen.
well,
The
well,
Nazis
yeah,
take him and then they experiment on him, and then he's frozen for X amount of years or something. I don't know. The point is, like,
well,
how are you going to get around that? How are you going to dance around that?
that's an issue. But for the rest of the X-Men, I think they can. I feel like mutants are the easiest thing to introduce. Like, yeah, these people are just born with their powers. Like Stan Lee, he said there's not supposed to be an origin, a unique origin for every single character. They're just born with their powers. That's it.
yeah.
So I don't think you need to try hard to get them introduced properly. But so at this point, do you want to be an
Is
actor
it
signed to
is
the
it
MCU would might die in
is it
5 years?
is it established like with Magneto and Xavier they have prolonged life? Or is
I
it just
don't think
something the
so.
comics should just kind of like as they go on, they just ignore because they're like such popular characters?
Well, they
I
definitely
think it's something
ignore
they
it.
ignore.
Yeah, because I
Because
mean,
he,
like someone like like all right, Cap got frozen. Like you have like
he got frozen for 20 years, less than that.
yeah, like
Yeah,
aren't
now it's like if
yeah
you're going to redo, let's say, Captain America after the MCU is done, let's say the year is 2030. Is Cap still going to be a World War II? He served in World War II and then he gets frozen for now like 90
I
years.
mean, it's stupid, but he could always just be frozen for longer.
Yeah, but it's just like
No, it's a
at
stupid
least in
it's
when
an
they
easy cop
originally
out.
did it,
Yeah,
he was like, "Oh, Peggy's still alive." He still has that connection. By then, there's not going to be any people alive from World War II.
I
yeah.
think that makes him more tragic, though.
I mean, like, I think it's more tragic that 70 years have passed. She's still alive, and she had a whole nother life without you. I think
True. I
that's
mean, it
worse.
is
He
kind of
he
that
was able
sweet
to
spot,
see it.
And I mean, it could be
the
tragic
sweet
too.
spot of suffering.
I think it could also be tragic not for Cap, but for the guy that she got married to. If like it was 20 years later, so and then she has a family and everything, just abandons him to go be with Cap.
Well,
Yeah, because
yeah.
certain characters you can always get away with, any eight like someone like Thor, obviously,
Oh yeah, yeah.
or like Surfer. Once he gets his powers, he becomes immortal. He doesn't need food or anything like that. Doctor Strange, you can place him kind of in any time, when he gets his powers. Like Namer's old, like he's prolonged life. So like certain characters, it doesn't matter, but.
It's
Yeah,
He'd
really
live
just like
longer if he had
Magneto.
love.
I'm just gonna ignore
What?
what Craig said. It's really more like Magneto that
I just got that. He was a child with love.
word.
And
That's probably you can't dance around that. I'm just curious how they're gonna do that.
Uh,
Because it's like you can't have the X Men without Magneto, unless maybe And this would probably be almost refreshing if they don't even bother with Magneto in the new MCU.
It's
Well,
also
they
like
gotta have him because they gotta, redeem him somehow, even though
Well,
he's
I know,
this
I know.
awful international terrorist who should be put down.
well, the thing with like Magneto, it's like he's a cool villain to have, but like he doesn't also like have to stay exclusive like to the X-Men. Because he's fought like a lot of different people in the past.
Well,
Like
again, because he's not, most times not, people aren't trying to redeem him. He's an international terrorist.
yeah, like it's not yeah.
And plus, who's gonna top Ian McKellen as old Magneto?
I mean, I kind of like the younger Magneto more.
Really?
Yeah, but that's younger though. This is old Magneto I'm talking about. Even though Ian McKellen, how he looks like in the original X-Men movie, that's only 10 years off. Actually, it's 8 years off from how Michael Fassbender looks like in this
In for
movie.
a rough 8 years.
Something stupid like all his guilt caught up to him, wore him down.
All of his killing.
His war crimes.
I'll be
Yeah,
curious to see what the MCU does with the X-Men. Obviously, this probably won't be for almost 10 years, maybe 5, 6 years.
yeah.
So I
Maybe
think
let them
Doomsday's
rest for a
coming out
bit.
in 2 years, and I think Secret Wars is 2027.
I was going to say, speaking of the MCU, I know when this movie came out, there obviously wasn't a lot of interest, but part of it was people were kind of hoping the movie to do bad so Marvel would get the rights back, which they did. So I guess people got their wish.
Well, I think, if I'm not mistaken, not Marvel, Disney acquired Fox in like March 2019. So it was all set in stone by the time this movie came out. This is like, I guess you could say, the final nail in the coffin, but at that point, it didn't even matter.
Well, well,
No,
here's a question.
I thought it was after, but doesn't
So
matter.
so here's a question. If you do reboot the X-Men down the line, what do you do? Do you do like
Could we reboot the whole MCU too?
well, I wish. I wish we could live in the Shire too, Craig, but some things are
March
just
2019,
dreams.
Craig. Wow.
But
Well, the one thing I would do, and then I guess we could talk about this for a little bit, then wrap up our thoughts. The one thing I would do was I would not have Wolverine in it. I would introduce him later in another movie, maybe, but I would be primarily focused on the cornerstones of the X-Men.
Well,
well, I,
especially with Hugh Jackman running around. I mean, people all they're gonna do is compare that character to him. There's no point. Well, the guy's still alive to play the character. Like, wait another 10 years and then maybe you get Wolverine.
they're gonna have a 75-year-old Hugh Jackman running around because they can with CGI now. It's like I mean, they brought in 80-year-old Harrison Ford to be the Hulk. Like, come on.
And Indy
Oh yeah. Oh, God.
and Han Solo.
I just love Han Solo. He wanted to kill that character off so long ago.
Well, Hugh Jackman's 55 right now, so I have a feeling he could be going on for a long time because all you have to do is put those markers on stunt doubles' faces, those
Yeah.
like white dots, and then superimpose Hugh Jackman on them.
And the Marvel whips, start cracking, and the CGI team gets whipped, and they start going to work.
I
You
mean,
have 3 months to do 1,800 shots.
because if you're Hugh Jackman, like I'm sure they'll pay you a nice hefty sum to show up, say some lines, and go home.
But I would be
Do you think Marvel's run by orcs?
the thing I'd be hyper focused on for
Down,
the
down, down,
X-Men
down. There.
is that I would try to have like rectified the mistakes that that guy's movies made. And again, those mistakes are primarily just the hyper focus on Wolverine. It's the
Don't appropriate
X-Men.
things.
What'd you say, Craig?
Oh, so don't do inappropriate things. That would be a good
Well,
start.
that goes without saying. I don't think I should say that.
Was
But
it rectify his mistakes? I mean, that's a
well,
mistake.
I meant in the movies.
I know.
You bum. But again, it's like it's frustrating if you're a fan of Cyclops. Not going to name anybody here. If you like Cyclops, and you just see him sidelined for 3 movies. He gets killed in the third one. The leader of the X-Men. I would try to be more true to the comics with the team aspect and those dynamics.
Well, I would definitely that'd be my first thing if I rebooted them is
Go Wolverine.
well, I would just do the original, literally the original team. Beast, Cyclops,
Iceman,
Xavier, Iceman, and Jean
Jean
Grey.
Grey
And Angel.
with the bazooka.
But see, here's the thing with the X-Men. These movies are separate from every other comic character. So when they have the whole, oh, people are hunting us because we're mutant stuff, obviously I don't fully agree with that, as I mentioned before, but it makes more sense in a universe where there's no other people with powers. If you have the Avengers running around and all these heroes that are so beloved, why would mutants all of a sudden be like the outcast?
Well, in a
Like,
way, some heroes are mutants. Like maybe not by definition, but like Spider-Man's technically a mutant.
so there's two different so the only difference between a mutant and Spider-Man is that
A mutant you're probably
Spider-Man
born
wasn't born
with.
with his
Yeah.
powers.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, at this point, if you're an average civilian in the MCU, who cares if you're born with the powers now? You're perfectly okay with Iron Man, Thor, all these guys running around, even the Hulk, who used to be hated and feared. Why
She-Hulk.
are mutants treated? Who?
Well, I don't think anyone has a
She-Hulk.
problem with she. Well, she's not like she's using her powers to do anything other than twerk.
All right.
Yes, that
It's not.
famous scene.
Yeah.
Well,
All right.
point is,
Well, all right.
for
Let me.
mutants, why would people fear mutants? Because that's all these movies are about, discrimination, how these groups are marginalized, and how that real life people are like the mutants.
So you
It's
would.
not going to work in the MCU.
So you would reboot them into their own universe, a separate
I think
universe.
those stories make the most sense when there's no other heroes. If you have the mutants, you can't have these kinds of. I mean, you people are probably going to do it anyway. But what I'm trying to say is, I don't think it makes sense in the world
Yeah,
logically.
when you have
No, I
the
agree.
event.
I agree.
Yeah, no, I that's a smart idea. Or like the only other team maybe would be like the Fantastic Four because they're just more explorers than anything. But you can't have, the Avengers who are taking on world level threats every other Sunday and then
Well, I think also
everyone's fine with them.
a real big problem if you do introduce the X-Men into the MCU in the same universe as like the Avengers running around and whoever is that it's an oversaturation of heroes in one spot. And I know the comics are like that. It's kind of silly if you ask me. But it's just like, well, how many world-ending threats are there going to be now? You know?
Well, I mean, that's. I know what you're saying too with that, but that's something that's more livable. That's just, a result of the medium.
I just think it's a little silly. And I know, like I said, the comics are just like that. But it's just like you have all these teams in New York. I don't know.
Well, well, I do think too. I mean, do you need all these superheroes? Well, you do need, it's not the greatest analogy, but you do need the military. You do need police at various points around the country because stuff does happen. You don't need like one
That's
police station
true.
in New York City, and it doesn't mean California or the West Coast is safe.
That's true. I'm just thinking that there's too many heroes, and like now there's gonna be the Fantastic Four.
I get that point too. My big thing is just like in the comics,
Yeah, your
the
analogy
Sentinels
though, I
are always
think.
hunting the X-Men. Like, why is it okay for these giant 20-foot tall robots to hunt exclusively just X-Men? But the Avengers, no one, oh, they're fine. We love the Avengers. We love the Fantastic Four. Those guys are great. X-Men,
Yeah.
I don't know.
You
So
know what
West
Marvel's probably thinking? They probably want a movie with Spider-Man, Iceman, and the Human Torch and Deadpool,
I
just motor mouths
no,
talking
not
I
Iceman.
nonstop.
think I think the only other
Isn't
characters,
Iceman like jokey in the comics?
I think definitely more so, but
Not
yeah,
not not the dull one we got in the
I think
movies.
he's much more akin to like the Human Torch.
well, it's funny. I know when they said they created Iceman, they wanted that's why he's Iceman. He's like the Human Torch, but he's got ice powers.
Mm.
Granted, they're probably much different now, but
Well, I think
who
that was like a,
knows?
a team bonus in Marvel Team Alliance if you had Spider-Man, a Human Torch, Iceman, and Deadpool. I forget what the team bonus was, but it was like I'm making this up. It's probably called something like Talkers Unite or something. It was definitely like a team. Maybe it was the second one. It was like a team bonus you could get.
Let's see.
Because obviously there's the Avengers team bonus, the X-Men.
Well, it was like the think tank,
Natural
wizards.
born leaders or something. Yeah, look it up real quick, then we'll summarize our opinions.
Well, I do want to say there are some positives.
Yeah.
That
What's your
well,
positive?
honestly, I do like some of the action stuff in the first two acts, like the opening space mission, fighting Jean Grey. Like they had actual explosions and sets, which I thought was kind of crazy.
Yeah, it looked authentic. Some of it. I thought the action in this movie is better than Apocalypse. I think I said that. I don't remember if I did. I thought this was,
Well, especially the New York City fight too, where it's like 4v4. It's kind of
or
more
should I say,
interesting than.
the set pieces were more interesting and better than the set pieces in Apocalypse. And that's even including the ridiculous him saving the mansion.
Oh wait, that reminded me that Craig, the another pouring it on Charles. Jean Grey forces him to walk.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
I
oh
forgot
yeah.
about that.
Oh,
That's
I thought it
so
was her being cruel.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I think it's also the writers were just like pouring it on to Xavier in this movie. Like, oh yeah, go walk, cripple.
Well, yeah, it was just her to be cruel, but yeah, that was brutal watching. And he's begging. He's like, "Gene, stop,
Yeah,
Gene."
I really felt bad for him. I was like, geez, this poor man.
I honestly forgot about that.
But I remember when they were fighting at Jean Grey's, wherever her dad lived, house. I remember, like, I think the lightning struck a house and looked like actual wood flying off the house. I don't think it was entirely CGI. Like, I guess I'm just giving this movie such little credit. But
Well,
also, when you
I
see
think.
actual real explosion
Well, I was gonna say,
in
I think
movies now, it's kind of
we
shocking.
we
Well, it's night
become
and day. You can
yeah
tell if it's a real
yeah
explosion.
yeah we've become so oversaturated with just green screen CGI effects. It's refreshing to see. Oh,
Actual wood can
yeah,
explode.
people using
Whoa.
props and actual
Well, that's what we
sets.
were saying in X-Men 3. You could tell there's like real sets, real explosions, and it looks authentic and it looks good when you use wire work, real craftsmanship with your sets and explosions and whatnot. Looks good.
Yeah, so when they had, I guess, time to prepare for sets, I mean, it did look, at least the action looked decent and good. Like
Well,
even in the
I
New
did.
York City fight, where like where
Yeah.
Cyclops kicks Beast over, Beast, that's, I guess that's not just a CJ, that's running like a monster on all fours, right? Like Beast.
That shot of when Magneto gets into the house and confronts Jean, and then she crushes his helmet and then ties him up with it and shoots him out. I mean, that was an actual stuntman hitting the top of that bus and then falling and getting dragged
Right.
into the street. It was a good shot. They could have easily just done Michael Fassbender in front of green screen with that, but they actually pulled the guy through, hit off the bus, and then dragged him.
Like it
Real
was just so
stunts
nice to
go a
That,
see.
that
long
no
way.
that yeah that no yeah the New York fight scene was clever.
I just like the 4v4, like constantly moving, like teleport me, and then like Cyclops have to go, and they have to help each other. It's definitely a
And
better fight scene than
Cyclops is
anything in
holding
Apocalypse.
Charles and blasting people that come in his way.
Good.
As opposed to everyone getting downed and just having Wolverine, who's unkillable, power his way through and just regenerate and stab.
Boring.
Well, all right. My one main positive, because I can't completely agree with no Wolverine because shirtless Hugh Jackman is needed, but I did appreciate no Striker.
Oh yeah. No
Until
fine
That's all
Natty
low.
Jackman.
Well, all right. Listen, we do need the Natty Daddy. All right.
Fuck.
What?
It's the Natty Daddy. He's all natty, bro.
You don't see.
Your mic
You
cut
didn't.
out. I didn't know what you said.
Wait,
What?
me?
Yeah.
It's,
Oh, I said the Rock. They don't. Someone said Natty Daddy, so I said the Rock.
oh, that did not sound at all what you said.
Have you heard like the "ock" part? And I was like, "What?"
Doc Ock.
Oh,
No, it was the
don't you
Rock.
know, guys, that you develop more muscle easier the older you get?
Yeah, some of you get bigger too.
Yeah,
Like you
yeah,
peak at 60, apparently.
yeah. Apparently, you get more testosterone the older you get.
So with all that being said, Craig, give me your final thoughts on
Wait, I have a few more positives.
Oh my God. What?
Like I said, I didn't hate the movie.
I know.
Well, I like the opening scene too. Now, right the between of, I guess the opening with Jean Grey is okay, but more so the space shuttle. Professor X, this is Charles Xavier. Please let me in on what's going on. They save everybody on the space shuttle. I like that.
Charles having like a command center with Cerebro.
It makes sense.
It was
And
good.
I like the theme
He
too.
had the direct phone to the president too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a nice little touch. Like, yes, we're calling the big guns the X-Men. I like
Yeah.
the theme too. Like the themes they were playing for that part. I thought the music was
Well,
okay, or at
I did,
least good.
and I and in this movie too, I did like in the that scene, the fights. I like the teamwork that they're all using their abilities properly together.
Yeah, I
Minus,
agree.
Like a
minus,
team
my, my,
should.
yeah.
It's like
I
an
just,
actual X-Men movie, not just Wolverine running around
just
shirtless.
wait. Here's another thing with that Mystique scene. She literally was useless being there, and she's the one with the most criticism. She did nothing.
Well, she
Nightcrawler,
barked orders. She was a good middle manager.
yeah, but Hank could be there, or Charles could be there, telepathically to bark orders at them. She literally was just there to like point the finger at Charles. He was like, you did absolutely nothing in that scene. Cyclops had a part. Jean had a part. Hank was flying the plane. You know, Nightcrawler and Quicksilver get into the shuttle to get the people out. Everyone except Mystique had a proper part in that scene.
She's just the worst.
And then
She
she's the one
really
that's
is.
gonna.
She is the worst.
That's why it's like someone like if Hank like was to voice the concerns that she had makes sense because he's the one flying the jet in, or maybe like or honestly they could have even had that scene for Scott because Jean he cares for her, they're dating, he's the young leader. It would have made more sense for Scott to have issues with what Charles was doing. Like, hey, like I think we're too inexperienced, or maybe we shouldn't, he should have been the one to voice that concern to Charles, not the one person who had nothing to do there. Because even Storm, she was the one to like seal up the airlocks and everything. Like, how do you have the one person who's useless say something and then point, you women saved you?
Terrible writing, that's how.
Also, Colin, I found your team bonus. It's called Shut Up Already.
Ah, that's what it
It's
was.
Iceman, Human Torch, Spider-Man, but no Deadpool is the thing.
It's a thing? Oh,
I mean, he's a bit chatty, but I don't know if I'd call him Shut Up Already
that's
territory.
interesting.
'Cause he's the one that's usually telling the Human Torch to shut up.
Yeah, the big beautiful blue-eyed thing.
So, with that being said, Craig, give me a real quick summary of what you thought of the movie, and then we'll go to Daniel.
Like, I probably should like it less than I did, but I really just think of the opening, and the rest I just it's in one ear out the other. So, it's like I said, I think the
It's
biggest
like
thing for it
it's like
it's just that it's boring.
your brain is protecting you against trauma.
Professor X put like a psychic barrier in my brain, so I wouldn't remember the bad parts.
I mean, that's a
Daniel, what
villain
do you
that
think?
makes sense.
I probably
But I
know
didn't
what you think.
finish.
Oh, I'm sorry, Craig.
I was gonna say that the big thing is it's really just boring. I mean, the opening is kind of exciting, but really the most of the movie is just boring, which is the worst thing a movie can be. At least if it's bad, you kind of laugh at it. A lot of it's just boring and not great, which I think is worse.
Hmm. Daniel?
It was bad. I mean, like there are the redeeming parts, or there are enjoyable parts of this movie. I'm not gonna say it was a complete mess, but I do like the scenes that Craig is talking about. But my biggest problem is the crapping on Charles constantly, literally making him walk, and then like the aliens were useless. Um, there's just a lot of character motivation that just was just stupid. So it's not in terms of being a movie like how it's made, it's not terrible, but I just didn't like it.
As I said, I thought it was better than Apocalypse, which isn't saying much. I like the team aspect stuff of the movie. Yeah, the dumping on Charles is not good at all, and the aliens are thrown in there. Like I said, I think Apocalypse is worse than this, which I was surprised upon rewatching it. Not terrible, not unwatchable, but not good, is what I would say.
The Fox verse does not go out on a grand. What the saying? Like not like a exciting but in a whimper.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
in a
they went.
cry, but a whimper or something.
Yeah,
Well, I don't know what our next movie's gonna be, but I
New
think
Mutants.
for the time being, we are done with the X-Men. So with all that being said, this has been the Unbiased Opinion, where everyone's opinion is biased except ours. I'm Colin.
I'm Craig.
And I'm Daniel.
If we get one comment on this video saying we should review the New Mutants, we're going to do it.
And we will see you next time.